Welcome to Judgement Engine, episode something or other, more or less the
Episode last one
for Game of Thrones. So last Game of Thrones episode, and just kind of maybe like a brief overview of the series as a whole or something.
Or a long, painful dissection of every episode.
Yeah, it depends on your time measurements, what's short or long or whatever. But I think
time is a flat circle.
That's a different HBO show.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'll keep that out.
I mean, we can talk about that one, but
maybe it'll get over there.
I don't think that, look, would Game of Thrones be better if Matthew McConaughey was in it?
Would it be better if Vince Vaughn was in it?
I think it's a resounding yes to both.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. Okay, so I am an avid not fan of Vince Vaughn.
So I've heard.
But two things. One, either Vince Vaughn gets brutally murdered in some way.
True, I didn't think of that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Or Vince Vaughn, gets the Iron
Takes
Throne.
the Iron Throne.
Yeah, at the end, and it's beautiful.
Never see that coming. Although he was the biggest one.
Look, or you replace like the Mountain with Vince Vaughn. Would just be funny.
Yeah,
like he's kind of like a slightly chubby, but
After
he's
that
really
shit
tall.
Happens to him, he takes off his helmet and he's Vince Vaughn. And his brother's like, Jesus, what happened to you? Oh my god.
So yeah, Vince Vaughn for Game of Thrones. Matthew McConaughey, he could just be some random weird lord.
Oh, like Ed
guy.
Sheeran or whatever, just a dude on the road.
Oh, I mean, like he could totally be like.
He could be Theon.
No, you don't want him to die though. I'm saying he
want
could
to
be like he could have been some random. What was Caitlyn Stark? What was her last name? Tully? No, the fish people. He could have been like some random fish guy. Like he could have been her cousin or something like that, right? Like important enough to show up, but like
one
maybe
of the Lords of the Vale or whatever.
Yeah, just some.
Like, I don't know his story. He's kind of weird.
Yeah,
that
maybe
story.
the Vale is perfect for that.
Yeah.
He's some guy, and he's like, he doesn't really show up until, what is that, like the 5th season or something. Maybe he does a little bit of fighting, and you kind of forget about him until like the end when he shows up or something like that.
Right. Yeah. He could have fit in. Sure.
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey could do this.
But that's not the Game of Thrones we got.
No, the Game of Thrones we wanted is not the one that we got.
No, we're in the darkest timeline.
Yeah. So.
Okay, well, I'll just say we're in the mid-level timeline. It could have been worse. It could have been worse timeline.
Official Judgment Engine statement about Game of Thrones. It could have been worse.
It totally could have been worse.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I don't think it was. So this it's important to note that the finale has happened about a week from today or something. So we've had like a little bit of time to let it kind of like marinate, soak in, whatever you want to call it. Time to digest, I guess.
I assume you're saying that because you want to note how the world just completely forgot about Game of Thrones, like instantly.
Yeah. So tons of hype into everyone being unsatisfied, and then people trying to shit on it, and people trying to like justify what happened, because spoilers. All Judgment Engine episodes are always spoilers all the time.
Double spoilers,
just in case. But people are like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense that Bran won in the end, or whatever. And I was like, oh, I mean, if you want to. Yeah, so as far as... They
weren't even making a big case for him being like a person with like, can he function in a government context? They hadn't presented that as like, can you stay with us for like 2 seconds?
All right. So before we jump deep into the Bran mode or whatever, right? So I think we can break it down as like part 1 being like Daenerys, the medieval Nazi or whatever.
Crime and punishment.
And then we have at least the other part as like the where do we go from here, their little council of
Let's
bullshit.
put a capper on this bullshit.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I guess it's mostly a part 1, part 2.
Yeah.
Do we need to break it down into another thing?
Well, there's epilogue stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, okay, so fine. So if you want to break it down into that third part.
So Daenerys is bad, and then she's also a Nazi. She didn't Sig Heil, but she thought about it.
She got so close to it. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you remember, but in Star Wars The Force Awakens, the first one that came out with Rey and Kylo in them, on the Starkiller base, the big like snow planet Death Star thing, I swear they like copied and pasted that scene because they had all of the First Order troopers lined up.
Paul Gleason scene.
Yes, with the banners and it's like kind of snowy and it's like ashy here and it's like let's do the thing and it's like okay. I would argue that Daenerys is.
I guess genocide gets you pumped up for.
Yeah. Once you pull that trigger, you gotta keep going.
Like, there's really only Hitler. That's the only way I can go here.
So after Daenerys burns everyone to death because she was angry and not happy with what had happened.
We don't really know how many people she killed because the show just sort of lazily...
A lot.
Yeah, it just stumbles into the next thing.
Yeah, so after that, Daenerys holds a rousing speech that is evocative of ye old World War II times and whatnot, and, gets the people going to go...
By people, her blood pledged servants who, like, I don't think they really care either way. They're like, yeah, did she give us an order? I mean, this doesn't matter.
I mean, everybody's so used to constantly murdering just 24/7, especially since the last episodes didn't really take into account, like, they didn't give us time for people to travel and time for people to like think about their actions and stuff. So the way it was like cut and presented to us, like, we're pretty much nonstop fighting from episode whatever, the one where like the Night King shows up. So for them, they're like, yeah, of course we need to keep fighting. That's all we've been doing for the past 5 hours.
Sure. Yeah.
So so we get that.
The Unsullied are a peacekeeping force that stabs people with spears. They're
really good.
The one thing they
at stabbing people with spears.
Yeah, they are good at it.
They're amazing at it.
Yeah.
I would argue Daenerys' speech was cooler than General Huxt, I want to say.
Wow, deep cut.
It's something stupid like that.
This man bought the tradable card.
He probably would have some really good like rallying ability or something.
Yeah.
Gets you a lot of draw power or something
+1 health
like that.
to your other minions.
Yeah,
sure.
He's purely a utility card. He's not a do something card.
Bad stats.
Yeah, of course.
Terrible stats.
But anyways, like, he's clearly whatever Star Wars TCG exists, he would not be meta.
No.
He would be like a rogue deck sort of thing of like, oh, you didn't...
Some goofy,
you weren't ready for the first order Zerg's rush tactic or whatever. Okay, anyways. Her speech was cooler because she had a big dragon who landed on like a building that was near and just like started screaming.
That was cool. And they had a giant banner also, which I'm like, did they carry that like 1,000-ton banner around?
So I was curious if that was like a boat.
A sail.
Yeah, that they just draped over it or something.
That could be.
But knowing her, she would be like, I need you to make this 1,000-foot banner and keep it with you at all times, just in case we take over a city and I want to drape over it.
You want to hang it from something? No. Just drape it over that wall. Okay. Put it over all the piles of corpses.
I don't like those.
I don't want to look. They smell funny. Put the banners.
They smell roasty toasty.
It's like when you have barbecue, you're like, great barbecue, but then 2 hours later, you're like, oh, barbecue. The smell. You know what I mean?
So they do that, and then I don't know how much you actually want to talk about like every action that takes place, but pretty much Jon Snow gets told what to do.
There's not a lot of actions in this episode, so it won't take us very long.
Okay, Jon Snow.
This was an episode where 2 things happened.
Yeah. He gets told, hey, you need to murder her.
By Tyrion, the master of affairs, master of ceremonies.
Yeah.
Who determines all things that will happen in Game
Well,
of
everyone... Anyways, so...
Even to have Jon come in there and be like, no, she's fine. Like, he starts that conversation with, like, what, was that genocide? I don't know. It seemed more like maybe just patricide and, matricide.
Yeah, I don't
even seem like full genocide.
I don't even know why Jon was permitted to even talk to Tyrion, because it seemed like already Jon was having kind of like misgivings about what was going on and whatever.
She pulled the lever, but she was a terrible Stalin. Like, she gave her, we'll conquer everyone and we'll kill everyone. It's like a lot of those people are standing around here. You should be a little more diplomatic. As a Game of Thrones player, she's terrible.
I would argue that after you give your Hitler speech and someone publicly like defies you, it would be great to just execute Tyrion on sight.
And Snow, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, why not?
Like, just say they tried to kill me.
Yeah,
is Grey Worm going to be like, no, dual process of law?
Grey Worm seems like he wanted to kill at least Jon beforehand.
He is DTF. He is ready.
He is... Anyways, so... that doesn't really make sense. And then, whatever, Jon goes and stabs Daenerys. Do you want to break that down any, or you want to just keep going? Because I'm okay with either.
Well, I do have a hilarious aside about the throne thing, but that's like a big thing.
She doesn't get to sit in it, which I guess was a nice touch.
Why not? She's right there. But I guess you're right. Thematically, it means she got this close, but she still failed.
Yeah.
Because she didn't cover her giant... Like, Jon has 2 moves. Supplicate or murder, and they're both like 50-50. Like, how could you not see that? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue a big thing about this last season of Game of Thrones is people doing stupid, illogical things and just kind of conveniently forgetting really important things.
Yeah.
Like when they're all going south and they get warned specifically that by Varys that he's like, oh, remember, you're on Greyjoy's fleet. And then Daenerys is like, it's fine. I'll just fly my dragons away from everything and instantly die or whatever, right?
I mean, she could have been huffing paint this entire time, and like they just didn't show it. But she's constantly high.
I mean,
I have no idea
it
what's
would make this show better.
They just showed
at least there's a reason
paint
for it
all over her face.
But yeah, so I think there's a lot of like people.
But even like this is like a crumbling castle thing. Have like someone around. You know what I mean? Like there's no reason for her to be alone. It's literally the writers are just like, we need to finish this with no complications.
Yeah, and like you could maybe make an argument that she's never been this alone before. Like she's always had her like some sort of advisor person or persons, and then Jorah Mormont or whatever has been her kind of like right hand night guy or whatever. But he's gone, and she killed one advisor and locked another one away. So like maybe this is like her slipping up because she's not used to being like this or whatever, like 100% in control, right? Like not even having any other opinions being thrown at her, right? So maybe you could like kind of forgive her for that, but like at this point you've committed to the murder monster lifestyle. Just always have your own like personal guard around you the whole time.
Yeah, you're a shitty person.
Like
have 2 guards. Also, you've been at multiple things where the people closest to you try to kill you. That's not like that's the first time it's happened.
I would also argue that she specifically knows about Arya Stark, who is a ninja murder monster,
yeah, right?
Who has shown that maybe she's not a huge fan of you.
Yeah, and don't you have anyone saying, like, oh, she survived? Like, she was right in the back or something. She was, like, close. She wasn't that far away.
Even if you're not worried about her, like, be worried about literally anyone who has survived the burning who might want to murder you or whatever, right?
Yeah,
like
even Tyrion is allowed to just walk up in the middle of her speech and be like, "Is this your moment? It's my moment now." You know,
like if he wanted to stab her, he could have.
Easy. Yeah.
So like that should have warned her.
They're oratoring, so I'll give a respectful 40-yard distance. I'm embarrassed. I have stage fright. I can't get any closer.
Yeah, so I think that's all really stupid.
Yeah, okay. So it's stupid, but it happens.
It happens.
Right. Did John make the right choice? Seems pretty clear. He didn't give us a lot of wiggle room on this.
I don't think there was any gray area left. No. I think it was purely like she is bad. And the fact that they could have thrown us.
She name dropped fucking Winterfell in her Conquer tour.
I know, right? I think so. There was they had a chance for her to be like once all the burning went down, for her to feel bad about it or to be like, I need to repent
or rationalize.
Or whatever. Yeah,
like I saw the soldiers in the streets and it seemed like they were gonna fight. Anything.
Literally anything.
Literally anything.
And she was like, "Nah, it was great. We should do it again."
She's like, "Did you see what I did?
It was really good.
It was so cool."
So, yeah. So I think there was no gray area. It was just like, she's evil, get rid of her or whatever, right?
And I mean, they've had characters who have been blinded by their righteousness, but it usually there's some basis.
Yeah,
not just like literally like I'm delusional, you know.
Yeah, but I think that's the huge problem with all of this is that like I think they do a terrible job of painting her as like a bad person who wants to do bad things, and they do a terrible job if their intention was like she needs to be the mad queen, like she's going crazy. It doesn't feel like they did either thing.
Yeah, she doesn't seem crazy.
No.
She just seems sort of misguided or whatever, but then like she's so misguided she murders everyone.
It feels completely out of nowhere, and like
Stannis is her foil in this. Stannis believed he was right, and he burned people, and then he even burns his own daughter. But they kind of sell it, at least a little bit, right?
A little bit.
Like he's got his back up against a wall. The religious zealots telling him, yes, this is correct. There's a reason he does it. It's not just literally like he burns his daughter because he's like, maybe this'll work.
I mean, so you could say that like the whole like him burning his daughter is like a weird character change, and it's like he shouldn't have done that, and that felt like undeserved as far as like the series goes or whatever. But I would argue at least with him, maybe you could make the case of like maybe like desperation. Yeah. Like he doesn't know what else to do. He's been on this like Lord of Light path as long as he's been trying to do this, the throne is mine thing, and he's running out of options, and it's out of his character. But like maybe he's like, you know, reaching a breaking point more. Like there's more of a reason I feel like why he would do it. Whereas like Daenerys, like she won.
Things are going great.
She didn't.
Yeah. Then she's like, "Do I have a daughter? Let's burn her."
like she essentially instantly wins like the last fight or whatever,
she's
right?
Like, I adopt you all, and I will burn you.
and everything up until now, her character has been like we need to defend the people. We need to care about the people. Like we can't just destroy.
She at least paid lip service to it. Yeah. It made sense.
We can't destroy everything because if we burn everything down, then like there's no people left in the city and blah blah. Like at least her like past like attacking cities and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden it changes because she's upset that one, her dragon randomly died due to poor writing, and then two, she's in a completely foreign land and nobody instantly wants to be her best friend, as far as I can tell. And those are the things that break her. Not any of the other like hardships that she went through, not any of the other like rise to power and like being like
persecuted and making wrong decisions in the the pyramid city and all that.
Yeah,
that's all fine.
None of
that shit.
That is a-okay, easygoing, whatever. But this is the thing that breaks her, and it feels like it comes out of nowhere, because at this point she should be, you know, kind of like steeled and hardened and like ready for this, right? Like she should be ready for things not going her way, and she should be ready for that like adversity and like I need to fight and I still need to do what's right or whatever, right?
Yeah, play the fucking game.
Yeah, but now that she's got experience under her belt, she's easier to break than she was before, because I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And again, you can connect these dots with better connective tissue. Like you can get here. You can get right to Jon stabbing Daenerys right in the same place if you just like you drop 2 or 3 sentences, you know, earlier in the show. You can get to the same place. But they just like no, they weren't able to. So that feels really unearned. I think we can both agree. Right?
Yeah.
And all right, so that's the end of the show. That's the game.
The dragon melts the chair.
And then a dragon melts a chair.
The dragon melts the chair, and then because I think it was supposed to be symbolic, but
metaphor.
It mostly just seemed goofy to me, because
it was super goofy.
Okay, so the problem here is that, for me at least, the intelligence of the dragon has never been quite established. Like we know it's not stupid, but we don't know, it's not like smart enough to like talk or anything, right? So at this point,
mostly just glowers.
I'm treating
it's a big glower,
like a dog. Like it's a big Labrador that can breathe fire or whatever, right? Yeah. So it's really funny when like,
I mean, it's fine if it's vengeful, or it's fine if it doesn't care. But if it's like angry, then it's like, what? It
just seems so funny, because it kind of comes off as he's just like, I don't like the chair.
Stupid chair. So this leads to an aside. So if you remember, that day I made the joke, like maybe he melted the chair because it's made of swords, and he saw the stab plating. He's like, maybe the sword stab plating. Yeah. So other people have made that joke. Most famously, a New York Times critic, I think, made the same joke on Twitter about the same time. Obviously, we're not stealing from each other, right? He would never have heard my speech in here or whatever. But that leads me to an interesting thing about Game of Thrones. It was really for some reason, a very concurrent pop culture phenomena, right? Where we were all biting in at the exact same time, even to the hour, because you could get spoiled so easily with this fucking show, you know? Even though, ironically, at the end, nothing really to spoil. Not really. Yeah. Nothing earned enough that it was like, oh, it's, you know, tricked you.
I agree.
Right? But it was an interesting accomplishment in the sense that, like, everyone was kind of firing on the same wheels. I have to ask, is this a good thing or a bad thing?
Okay. So I thought at first you were gonna go with the like, oh, this is an amazing accomplishment thing, but to break it down as to like, is this a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, I think that's an interesting question. People, and we both made the same kind of stupid joke. Like we're phenocopying, and society has become simpler because of it. Right?
Yeah. So I think there's something really nice about like shared experiences, like even on like a very small level of whatever, of like, oh, we both did the thing, oh, it's great, we both love playing basketball or whatever, right? Yeah. Obviously this is on like a much grander scale or whatever, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can talk to my mother about this show, so
yeah. So I think there's something inherently I think it's good. I think it's good to have a shared experience thing, but I think it's extremely hard to like, you know, like get this many people involved. I think it's like a novel kind of thing, but like, I don't know, like I do think Game of Thrones was special in that it managed to accomplish it on such like a ginormous scale.
It seemed kind of pan-demographic, right? I mean, even people that we knew that weren't even like into the other seasons came aboard.
Yeah, right? Because you just want to be part of it.
Yeah, it was just like everyone, and there was something for them to look at.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because there's enough for a lot of different types of people to like get interested in. Like the show had a lot of characters and a lot of plot lines and a lot of things that like you could find something that you liked or your favorite character or whatever, right?
So it was a complex show.
Yeah, there were enough different bits and pieces to it that you could find something that you enjoyed, and I think that worked for like the greater population. Where instead of it just following Harry Potter or whatever, right? Like if you don't give a shit about Harry Potter, you're gonna have a really bad time because the whole book series is about him and from his point of view and whatever, right?
In a way, the show encourages it because it's kind of anti-protagonist.
Yeah.
Right. It killed the two main ones we thought were the Golden Boys. And
So
it wrote 30 other characters in, so it kind of gives itself
Yeah,
over to that. If
so-
there's some story in here you will identify.
Yeah,
with.
and because like you're saying it's like anti-protagonist, essentially everyone's story could theoretically have been the most important story. So it gives credence to you liking some random side character because you're like, side character might be really
yeah, they
fucking
might
important.
figure in all the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was good and I enjoyed it, but I also want to put out, I hope this doesn't become like a more than one show kind of thing in the future. I do think
Where
at
we're
some
all-
point,
the entire nation of America is tuning in at 8 on Sundays to watch our HBO jerk feed.
no, but not. So I'm okay with it happening again, right? Some new show takes off and lights up and everybody loves it or whatever, right? What I'm not okay with is like, imagine if it's like, okay, so I gotta watch Game of Pizzas on at 8 p.m. and then on Tuesday I have to watch the new CSI Chicago, and then at
It's really highly rated on Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah, and then they made a Breaking Bad sequel, and I gotta watch that on Thursdays.
So you agree
and-
there's something scary about the monoculture. If everyone's watching the same thing and you're dutifully like enrolled in
Yeah,
the schedule.
I think it's great that it's like a shared experience thing, and you can it kind of transcends like borders and boundaries of like age and background and whatever, because you can just talk to a random, like you could go and ride the bus and talk to a random stranger about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Whereas before the only thing you could talk about was the weather or whatever, right?
Or you could be like, you should really watch The Wire.
But I don't. What I'm worried about is it becoming sort of like a job or like a task to keep up with these things, because they're.
And it was. This season was a
Yeah.
task. We had to schedule it. We had to all arrive. Some people couldn't wait the hour for our, like, if we were 2 hours after
Yeah.
premiere, and they watched it earlier.
Yeah, you had to watch it right when it came out. Otherwise, you were in jeopardy of
Yeah, you were
it being
jeopardy
ruined
and
for you.
screwed.
Yeah. So
And the only other option was to not engage at all, to completely shut it out.
yeah. So I think the problem is that if this becomes too commonplace, which there's a chance it can because of how connected we are with social media and
Also, the corporations want this. This was success. This was money. They don't want, like, you know, oh, good, people kind of like BoJack Horseman. That's a great show, right? But they want people. This is way better. Fucking 40 million people tune in every Sunday on day and date.
the fact that it's not just people watching the show, but you have them timed as to when exactly
Yeah.
they're going to bunker down or
Amazing.
whatever.
Yeah.
That's a lot of control right there.
Yeah.
To just be able to be like, we know when to air
Got
the
your
Mountain Dew
eyeballs.
commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
You will watch Big Little Lies season 2. That's as far as they've used it for. But they could have put a Mountain Dew commercial before, right? It would have been bigger than the Super Bowl.
like their for the last episode, they were like, how many HBO show previews can we stuff in front of this?
Jesus, it was like 30 minutes. It was like going to the movies these days.
Please check out any of these things.
Please don't unsubscribe, please.
So yeah, I think in a vacuum, it's a good thing. But as far as how it affects other people's lives in general and stuff, I think it could lead to some bad things potentially.
Yeah, I mean, also just the idea of like everyone having the same discussions, and like if you read about it online, maybe you hear people say the same talking points. Not that they are reading about it and then saying it, but just that people will come to the same conclusions and you'll hear the same thoughts and everything will kind of go
but
round and round.
That'll happen with anything that's like popular or big or whatever, right? Like maybe this is too stupid of a reference, but
are you saying our Oscar-winning film discussion about how what the fuck was that movie called?
Shape of Water?
Shape of Water, about how like eggs and fucking were the tenets of the universe. Do you think other people had that conversation?
Maybe not everyone, but some people probably did.
Probably you're right. God damn it. He's lying. Judgment Engine, this is premium, unique content. He's just lying to give you a rise.
Like, I think anything that, I don't know. I think the real, like, a lot of people are going to come to very surface level conclusions or whatever, right? Like
this sucks.
Yeah, like this sucks. People may have different reasons and may have like deeper conversations about like why they think certain parts suck or whatever. But if the world can unite and can say Game of Thrones sucks, or at least Game of Thrones season 8 sucks or whatever, then whatever. That's not too unexpected.
Kim Jong-un is turning off his DVR in disgust right now.
Do you want to add anything to the good or bad discussion, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I am sort of against it. I think that it'd be nice if, like, the culture was diversified. Just because, for right now, it's fine, but we're not the last stage of culture. The next stage of culture will be people who take whatever inputs and make something new, right? So if those inputs are all the same, then we're going to go into the funnel.
I mean,
but there's always other things. I mean, there's people who don't watch TV and stuff like that. They all participate in culture, even if they don't like it. But.
Yeah, I mean, if you're worried about people being creative in the future and whatever they make is going to be too samey or whatever, I would argue that there's already a huge chunk of stuff now that's too samey. And like the reason why something like Game of Thrones blew up was, it's not that we didn't have Netflix or we didn't have HBO streaming or we didn't have all the other random streaming whatever like Hulu and stuff beforehand. It's just that like they managed to finally make something that was unique enough that you did get all the people latching on.
And to its credit, it's the most unique thing. There's really nothing like it. You can compare the battles to Lord of the Rings, but it's not Lord of the Rings. It's its own thing. So, well done.
Yeah, no, I think they should, as a whole, they should feel proud of what they managed to accomplish and the fact that they got so many people involved and interested in whatever.
I mean, they translated something that you can't make a movie out of. It has way too many parts. It's too long. It's only appropriate for serialized television. Can't even be done.
Yeah, so that's another thing I think is that I think a lot of the times there are TV shows that suffer because they take something that could have been a movie and they just stretch it out, so it feels like a really long, awkward movie
with weird asides that don't plug into the plot or whatever.
But this was good because there was enough going on and enough different threads and enough different people's stories that you felt like the amount of time that you spent on it, like 10 episode seasons with, an hour episode each, whatever, that you could still keep going at. There was still more to learn and still more to do. Like, it didn't feel like it was having to stretch out material for the most part because they didn't know what to do and they just needed to fill the time or whatever. You can argue this last season that maybe they could have stretched it out further to put things in, but
8 episodes wouldn't have broken the bank, but all right. Well, they chose this legacy. So speaking of legacy, in the end, a young or old dwarf decides everything. Let's talk epilogues. Let's talk legacy.
Like of the show as a whole, maybe, or
let's go right
do you want to
into,
break characters down or something?
Let's go into what happened at first, right? So for me, the way I see this is Tyrion has made 7 mistakes before this episode, and he makes 3 more. He goes to the queen while she's giving her speech, and he's like, "Hey, I guess you're a Nazi now. I'm against you." This is how I can help people, is by like showing your blood loyal troops that would never betray you that I am against you.
That's not exactly the crowd to show.
Does nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And then he like openly, like, it's a good thing no one was spying on John at all, because he blows the show. He's like, you have to kill her. You know what I mean? Like, that could have screwed everything.
The fact that like no one was listening through the door or
no
whatever.
one learns anything in this show, right? And so he's going to be executed, and he somehow makes it through. So he's the man who's made the 9 mistakes, and then everyone looks at him at the conference of lords, and they're like, who do you think we should crown, young dwarf? Even though you've been on like the enemy side, and you were a Lannister who we all hate. No one likes the Lannisters. You pretty much like commiserated with everyone who sucks. So you seem like the best person to decide.
I mean, I would just throw out that whole like the United Nations meeting thing that they had at the end was so fucking stupid.
Amazingly whatever.
And of all, there's plenty of like stupid things that happen in the show, but this is something that felt like it was inherently like not Game of Thrones. Like this wouldn't happen here. So great.
And the way it happened, anything could have happened before it. Like you can arrive at this scene with any plot, anything happening. They could have filmed this at the beginning of the season without writing the rest of it.
The idea that everybody just is now calm enough to just sit down and have a meeting,
great,
blows my mind. What? Anyways, okay.
Good thing there's not even one asshole among these 9 people.
As far as like the Tyrion story goes, I think that he had an interesting story, and then like they didn't know what to do with him, but they didn't want to kill him,
and they didn't want to make him king.
And they didn't want to make him king.
The end of my Tyrion hopes.
So but
they love him.
Yeah, so they were like, we're going to give you a 2nd place medal for participation. Congratulations.
You're the crowner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You still have some amazing amount of power, even though you're in jail and maybe everyone hates you.
You decide the fate of Westeros, even though Grey Worm brought you there to be like, I'm going to kill this guy. Do you want to watch? I'm going to choke him right now. But then they ask him if he's going to be king, and Grey Worm's like, well, who do you think should be king? Go ahead and decide.
Yeah, as far as the rest of the conference of people goes, I don't know why anybody was so chill with anything that happened. Like it seemed like everybody was really okay with like
whatever.
First of all, like Tyrion deciding or mostly making the case for someone, right? And then the fact that it was Bran. And then so remind me of this. Did Sansa or Tyrion or Arya ever mention that Jon was the rightful heir to the throne?
No, they don't. They're like, he's a prisoner.
Which might have solved all of these problems, right? Because then you don't need to decide who's king because there is a king. And then it's totally cool because she was trying to usurp him, or you could paint it as that, and that's why he had to kill her. And now everyone is cool with this. Jon doesn't have to get banished.
They don't need to bring that up because there's no fight anyway. It's just totally chill. Just name whoever you want. You know what I mean?
No, but I'm saying that was the whole reason why
that plot thread goes nowhere.
But like that's why Daenerys was like super upset with him before, and kind of. And, like, maybe that's what rattled her. And, like, if you're going to blame that, but then never bring it up.
Yeah, it gets Varys killed because he moves on it.
Yes. And then everybody just stops talking about it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, but that's...
You'll let him go, right?
Well, because that's one really good way to make sure that Jon doesn't get executed or banished or whatever.
Yeah.
Jon's just like, psych.
We thought that was what was going to happen. So the reason why they don't bring it up is just to defy your expectations. That's the only reason he doesn't get the throne here, because he's in position.
Yeah,
he's
locked and loaded.
Yeah, and they're just like, nah. No, it's gonna be Bran. Credit to Sansa for sensing the vibe. She's like, "Are you guys really going along with this?" Can I just say, I will be Queen of the North. Also, the Northmen are really tired and they can't bend their knee right now because they've got arthritis. So I will be Queen of the North. Thank you. Does anyone object? No one. Did you all fucking smoke out before you came here? What is going on? I'm also Queen of Dorne. Does the Prince of Dorne have any objection? Nothing. He says nothing.
It's okay.
I'm Queen of Dorne too.
He's never had any speaking lines except maybe he says "I" or whatever.
Yeah, he might nod. Yeah.
That might be his one line, maybe if he gets one. Yeah. So I think that is the perfect capper on her story of they had no clue what to do with her, like post Battle of the Bastards, Winterfell, whatever thing, because she peaked too early, and then they had no clue what to do with her, and then they were like, we need to still leave her up in the north, but we don't know how to do it.
When she peaked, there were a lot of monarchs around at the time. It wasn't a big power gap.
So I think that was just like, we need to like appease the fans and do this, and it makes no sense. I think you could have maybe argued for that being a logical move if they didn't make Bran the king. Like if it wasn't Bran,
she's like, I don't want to bend the knee to my brother who's in the same fucking family. What are you talking about?
So stupid. Like out of
the entire kingdom just became House Stark. What the fuck are you talking about?
So because she had essentially four lotto tickets of all like the Stark children and like Jon, if any of those people became like in charge, she wins, right?
Yeah.
But okay, so say it was Tyrion that gets the throne, or like some other. You could even argue that if her fucking uncle or whatever got the throne, that she still wins. So that's like 5 lotto tickets or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So 5 out of like the 12 people there, she had amazing odds.
Yeah, she was doing really good.
So
and they were all allies. There was no one.
No one who wants to fight her, yeah. Except if Grey Worm was like, I'm the king now.
I should be king. Why not? He has king.
Why not?
He has the molten puddle of the Iron Throne.
It's my puddle.
King. Lay on it, spread eagle. I am king.
He's like, I made my shoes horseshoes. My horse's horseshoes out of it, so my horse wears the Iron Throne wherever he goes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's good.
Yeah. So if it would have been somebody else, right? Then I think there's like infinitely more reason for her to be like, oh hell no, I'm not about this, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that it's like her brother makes it seem.
Her brother's like a young dude,
like petty.
He's been there for a while.
Yeah, like it makes it seem petty and stupid.
Yeah.
And the problem is,
it makes it seem like I want to be queen, though. I mean, I was hoping Tyrion would say me, but he didn't, so I'm Queen of the North.
I think it's problematic because for whatever Sansa like learned and how she's like, no, I'm not a little bird anymore when she's talking to the Hound or whatever, and all this stuff, all of that is thrown away because she's like petty, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I mean, she played the Game of Thrones well. No one.
No, but
there was a huge power vacuum.
But she didn't even do anything clever.
She was like, "Is that your Snickers? I'm taking the one Snickers, and I will not share it with anybody."
But the thing is, like for her being like smart and like learning from Littlefinger and all that stuff, none of it mattered because she just said it's mine.
When she said that, I thought that was going to destroy the alliance, and everyone was going to walk. Why would anyone bow to King Bran?
I thought Bran was immediately going to be like, "Oh no, sister, that's not how this works."
Simmer down now.
But no,
everyone was cool with it.
Whatever,
fine. I took 4 Xanax before I came up here.
I can't feel anything.
That's what you want to be king? Am I king? Oh, you're king. Okay. Yeah.
Bran can't feel feelings, and Tyrion's like, it should be Bran, and Bran's like, of course it's me, duh. Yeah. He's like, this is great. I love this.
We've had a few child kings. We had one child king that loved to murder and torture people, and he was poisoned at his own wedding. That sucked. We had another child king. He enabled a big missionary army that was gonna murder everyone, but they blew up, and he committed suicide. But this child, who I've known for at least 50 minutes, I talked to him. I did talk to this guy, and he seemed a little disaffected, like Dr. Manhattan. But I don't think he would be pleased by murdering hookers. He didn't say one way or the other. When I asked him, he just shrugged.
Sometimes when I ask him questions, he doesn't respond at all.
He doesn't respond. He just goes off in the middle. But I think he'd be a good king.
10 out of 10.
I mean, we had one person who like freed slaves and stuff like that, and like in 10 minutes she switched to horrible murderer. But that doesn't seem relevant to this.
That doesn't seem relevant to the magic man who we're going to give absolute power to.
The spooky guy who had something to do with the Night King who wanted to annihilate all of humanity. But he didn't, so whatever.
I do think it's great that they go from the person who has like the most like magic power with the dragons and stuff to like it can't be her. It only has to be the magic man who can see the past and the future and manipulates people as he's shown before, and he doesn't talk to people.
He can go back in time and mind wipe you in the past. That's some like Terminator shit.
We should trust him.
He'll be fine. That's fine.
We should trust him because he can't have a kid.
Yes.
That's it.
Which, has anyone tested that? No one. Yeah, no one. All right. That's fine.
Yeah, I do think it's funny that they leave a lot of like loose ends as far as like other characters, be it minor or major. Like essentially everybody else who was like a lord there, who knows what they're doing? Who knows how they feel about this? We didn't talk to any of them. Yeah, we don't know if people want to fight back, uprising,
why wouldn't
whatever.
Doran want to be swallowed up in this republic? Why not?
They seem totally cool with their own...
It's never been weaker. You know what I mean? Like, it's never been better to become an independent state. This is the time.
Yeah.
The hand is so crippled that's holding the wheel.
I'd like to point out that no one except the Greyjoys or whatever, their people, no one else seems to know how to use boats. So
you're good. Yeah,
you already have a huge advantage there.
And it's not like they gave you concessions. They're like, you will stay on your shitty island because we're in charge. You know, it's not like, oh, Greyjoys, here's the political gamemanship. We gave you part of the Reach, and we gave the Wildlings some of the Reach. Everyone gets some of the Reach, you know.
Yeah.
Or like Highgarden. Highgarden, it's literally just like there's Braun.
Like he gets it.
He gets it. That's fine. Everyone's dead.
They do the Arya thing where they just send her off. They do the Jon thing where they just send him off. They even, I would argue, even like the fact that the dragon just flies away, and it flies away with Daenerys. Who knows? Maybe we do some mumbo jumbo in that in a sequel or whatever, right?
It's totally open ended. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, I kind of like the Arya epilogue because it was like her saying like, I don't care about any of this stuff.
No, I'm totally fine with her not caring about any of the stuff, and she already was like, I'm not like a lord or a lady or whatever. Like I don't want to be a part of this. But the fact that she doesn't have any sort of like. She doesn't have any sort of plan beyond like, I'm just going to leave, and I thought of this 2 minutes ago. And that feels really confusing. Like, why?
Yeah, you know what might be west of Westeros? Nothing. You could die.
Well, I mean,
do you guys even suspect the planet is a sphere? I mean, does anyone know? Okay, just go. It's fine.
Yeah, so it could have been... There could have been something she was chasing after or something, but she's just like, I'm leaving by.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You guys are good, right?
She's like, this isn't my problem.
The new council seems pretty chill. You guys can just do whatever you want.
Yeah. Sansa...
The only stick is like Grey Worm, who could have kept the Red Keep easily. He's just like, I'm going back to my home planet, the island of whatever, off in the middle of nowhere. I will take all my murder forces that hate all of you.
Yeah, the
away.
fact that all of the murder forces just magically disappear is like, oh my god, you guys are so good at writing.
The only standing army in Westeros is like 2,000 Northmen.
We don't know.
We're very tired.
we have 2,000 Northmen who are very tired.
Did the Dothraki
maybe some
go with the Unsullied, or are they just riding around raiding?
I'm assuming they also just magically they also got on the boats and left or whatever. Because why not? Who cares? Nothing matters.
Yeah. Let's go back to the Red Waste. Great.
10 out of 10.
So good.
I want to go back to the lifeless desert.
The big desert thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Now let's keep the Red Keep. That seems pretty good.
Yeah, so
they do all that, and Grey Worm's like, okay.
Yeah, what happened to your like?
And could you release Jon? Sure.
The pride for your like queen and all that stuff.
that.
Yeah, they just kind of roll over and they're like, that's fine.
He has to go to cold place. Do you see? Do you understand how he'll be punished now?
Ooh, it's so chilly.
It's very cold.
And guess what? There's no soup there. He's gonna feel bad.
He's gonna want soup because it's cold,
But he
and
can't
he just
have
has
it.
some bread, and he's like, "This is okay."
Grey Worm's like, yes,
Yeah.
the ultimate punishment.
Fucking do it.
Make him pay for his sins. Yeah, so I think as a whole, the ending was ass.
Sure.
I think the 8th season was ass.
Yeah, I liked 2 of the episodes. 4 were bad. That's not a good ratio. And the 2 episodes I liked was just the action. The money was on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as a whole, the show will be remembered for bringing everyone together at Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific time.
Remember
or
the
whatever.
good times? Remember that time you read a spoiler about John being dead in a thread about how to bake cookies, and you were like, "Why? Why?"
So I think people are going to remember like good things about it, but I also think the idea of like, oh, they dropped the ball, I think that's gonna stick with people. Like maybe
endings are tough.
Maybe not as bad as like I think Lost is like a
Ooh, yeah.
I think Lost
is pulled up from crashing into the mountain like that.
I think Lost is a good example of like it's a long ongoing show that people ridicule for its ending. I don't think it's going to be quite that bad, but I do think it's going to be like
the Lost ending is not terrible, but the problem with the Lost ending is they are telling you for 6 seasons you're going to have a really nice prime rib at the end. It's going to be delicious, and at the end they're like, here's your chicken.
Thanks. Thank you.
This isn't about mysteries. This is about chicken. And you wanted this fulfillment of your friends saying goodbye to each other chicken. That's what you ordered. Remember? And you're like, I ordered the ribeye. They're like, shut the fuck up. Fuck you. Game of Thrones didn't do that. That's true.
No, I think the problem is that whereas with Lost, if you mention Lost, you'll have people who are like, oh my god, it was so stupid. I don't think people are going to do that with Game of Thrones, where I think people are going to be like, are going to do the thing where they talk about how much they enjoyed it, and then they kind of fade away at the end. We're like, oh yeah, like they remember that it was like a letdown. Yeah. So I don't think it was like a super nail in the coffin. Like people are gonna ridicule the show and make fun of it or whatever in the future. But I do think it's like it is like a lingering kind of like black eye sort of thing like of this show. Like
there's nowhere to live in this last season. There's nothing to think about.
No.
There's nothing to fantasize about. the things that you cared about, they didn't follow up on, and then the big questions, they just chopped the onion.
Yeah.
They're like, done.
So I think the big thing is like, will there be any sort of repercussions, or will people learn anything
Will they
from
change
this?
the way? I mean, what could
Right.
they have done?
So okay, so here's the thing, right? So there was the thing, I don't know when it was reported or who reported or whatever, but the idea of that, like, HBO wanted more seasons, and the showrunner people said, like, no, it
They
ends
said
now.
go short, yeah.
Yeah. So is
But
this
we now know they were courting other big deals.
Yeah.
They wanted to go make money.
So is this now a scenario going forward where HBO says, no, we're the ones who set the show, right? Is this a warning for other shows now where they take control away from the
I don't think they do
showrunners or
that
something?
because they like being on this side of the table where they can just fucking cancel you at a minute's notice. Because they've done, most shows on HBO don't make it past 3 seasons. They get shit canned. Probably 1 season is the average. That's where they like to be. They like to be in the show me what you got, and then they shoot you in the butt.
I'm just saying, is anyone going to learn anything from this, right?
I mean, really, so who knows what the next Game of Thrones will be, but my guess would be it's something coming from Disney where they're going to do a big sequential thing with a ton of money behind it, X-Men property or the Avengers property or whatever,
Sure.
right? So the question is, how much power do they get? Do they have showrunners in charge, or is it corporate in charge?
Yeah.
I would suspect it'd be corporate in charge.
I mean, but Disney seems more like a pro-corporate place just to begin with.
Yeah, they're big on that.
So, yeah,
HBO's corporate too. HBO's owned by Time Warner. You know, it's a big fucking megalomaniac thing. It's a beast.
Yeah, so I think it's a question of, like, does Game of Thrones change how shows are made, or I don't want to call it regulated, in the future, right?
Prevent disappointing it.
Yeah, to prevent the thing where you've built people up for that many seasons and you want to, your whole goal is to, like, avoid backlash, right? Like, not write it so that you tie up loose ends, not write it so that people are happy, but you try and make the last season, like, we need to deflect as many angry comments as possible.
Honestly, I feel like that's what they did. I feel like that's what they ended in here. They tried to give some surprises, Daenerys and whatever, and then they also, like in Bran, arguably just a left field surprise, right? Just to be like, we're the surprise show, while not killing any beloved people without giving them their due. You know, like the Lannisters get this long sequence when they die.
Yeah.
The Cleganes get to have this big epic fight, and no one is just summarily murdered because that's the way life works. That doesn't happen in this season.
The only person who is the scientist alchemist dude.
Yeah, because fuck science. But
He's fucking thrown into the wall or whatever.
Yeah, okay, he's summarily murdered. No one liked that guy though.
But yeah, that was entertaining. That was
Yeah,
enjoyable.
that was good. Yeah. So I think the way they could have improved this season is just have more random murder. It would have been easy. Just something that surprises you. People scrambling for the throne. Oh no, the Lord of the Vale got murdered. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. You can still have the same narrative. But there's nothing surprising here. It's just like you see everything coming a mile away. You're like, no, Daenerys, don't do it. And as soon as she does it, you know she will be killed for it. You know, there's nothing to bite on here. There's nothing to think about.
I would argue that the only surprise that actually happens is Bran being crowned the king, and that was, like, the most disappointing surprise possible.
Yeah, it's not shocking. It's just like, I gave my pickle to that guy. Like, why did you do that?
Yeah, it's just, I think literally any other candidate, any other person in the entire show in the history of ever would have been more interesting than him, because I think maybe because of the reason that Tyrion gave, where he's like, he's detached and weird and whatever, I'm like, he's no fun though.
I'm not sure that's what you want in a ruler. He's really detached, guys.
He doesn't care about anything.
He just doesn't care. It's fine. You don't have to feed him all the time. But I think so. Those kind of comments are considered notes. They come from corporate. I think there will be more of that stuff to try to control what's happening in the final season. Please, but I think conversely, what happens is you end up with a more homogenized product
Sure.
because you get lots of people doing that. So you end up with the average of everything.
I don't think they did this, but it would have been really funny if they took a bunch of swords and like welded them to Bran's wheelchair, so he could roll around looking pretty sick.
Wheelchair thrown. That'd be pretty funny. I like that.
But no, not that fun.
No. There's nothing fun at the end of this. This finale had nothing fun in it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think it's been an enjoyable ride, but I think, like, personally, if I were ever curious about like going back into this, I would probably stop probably like into Battle of the Bastards. I'd probably
like,
just quit.
It's done.
Yeah, be like, what is that, 5 seasons or whatever? Be like, nice.
Maybe watch the Night King get iced.
Yeah, sure. Go YouTube clips or whatever, right? And like, I don't know. That's a little bit upsetting to me because there's not even like the motivation to kind of like, because there's nothing to experience again because it's so like hollow and empty and lifeless and boring that there's like I don't like. I thought about like once the show ended, I was like yeah, maybe I should go back and watch things or whatever.
Monologue a little bit.
But
Okay.
okay, sure. But I think as far as things go, I think it's a little bit of a bummer that it only seems like the kind of the beginning and the middle, you know, that's where the real meat of the show is. Whereas if you look at something like, or not whereas, but similarly, like I mentioned Lost before, I think if you go and you wanted to rewatch something like Lost, you would maybe only watch like the first 2 seasons or something, because that's where there's still like the mystery and the intrigue of like what's going on here. Whereas if you look at something that's kind of like more developed and more like content dense, and something where it feels like things actually matter towards the end of the show, then maybe you watch something like Breaking Bad, where you feel like it's worth rewatching because there is still something at the end of the road that keeps you going.
I'm so relieved to hear you say that.
I think the main point is that for as impactful as Game of Thrones is, I don't feel compelled to rewatch the whole thing ever again. It's like the same thing where like people.
So this idea, did it create a complete work? Is it something that stands the test of time?
I say no.
Maybe not.
I say that it was pretty solid, and then at the end it dropped the ball, and there's almost nothing worth going back to.
I'd say it's fun, kind of in the same way. Like, it's definitely better than like Arrow. If you're going to choose to marathon something and you have your CW subscription and your HBO subscription side by side, like it has a lot of things going on. It's complex. It has better action. It's very grounded. It's a cool show.
Yeah.
But is it an amazing show? Maybe not.
Yeah. I think that's the real zinger here, is that I think for the first 5, 6 seasons or whatever, you could argue it was like a great show and it should be like remembered and praised as that. But I think specifically this season knocked it down far enough where I would say
Lost has this problem too. Lost, people thought was the best show ever made, and then it ended, and people are like, "It's okay."
Yeah, which is unfortunate. But I think that is kind of the legacy that Game of Thrones leaves behind.
Maybe they're related. The issue is the machinations become too clear at the end. You can't see where it's going in the early seasons because it's not really going anywhere. It's kind of swirling around in the bottle. But in the final season, it's endgame, right? They're trying to end all these threads. Maybe that's the mistake they made. They tried to have a winner. They tried to neutralize all hostilities. Because in the end, in that council, everyone is friends. They won. They fucking won. That's the alliance. That's the rebel army, right? Everyone's a winner there. There's no one there that lost.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a mistake. You kill all the villains, and then at the end, you're just like, eh.
I think there was probably the biggest moment, I think, of Game of Thrones that like catapulted it into the mainstream / really set it apart from other shows was the Red Wedding. And I think the thing about that was is like you could say that like, oh, the Rob was acting kind of cocky, and maybe he had it coming because he wasn't playing along well with like people who should be his allies. He was kind of being shitty to them and whatever and stuff like that. But I think the thing there was that it wasn't just that like, oh, like we decapitated one Ned Stark who we had already arrested and who was like mucking up trouble in the capital with like the most important people. Like this was like a kind of protagonist character, and then like everyone dies, or whatever, right? So I think that was a big deal, and like that set Game of Thrones apart from other shows. But then like it felt like after that there was too much plot armor for like main characters, and like we forgot about that. So when you were saying like people saw the end game and this is what they were expecting sort of thing, I think you needed to pull another moment like that where like it was like a big, we need to like flip the world upside down.
It makes the most sense. It's the most Game of Thrones things. I mean, if both Jon and Daenerys go down for some reason in this last episode, then it's a scramble that makes sense, and people try to fill the power vacuum. If Jon kills Daenerys and then they just calmly sit and decide who should be king, there's nothing interesting about that.
Yeah. The fact that I'm not saying that they needed to take all of the, the 12 people at the council meeting and like everybody grabs a sword and they duel each other to the death there for the throne. It doesn't have to be something stupid like that, but just something. Give the people one more Game of Thrones. This is wild.
There's even a reason this should be political. Dorne, we know nothing about them. Why would they acquiesce? The Prince of the Vale, he's a weirdo. He drank breast milk for 16 years. That's a weird guy. Why would he acquiesce, right? The pirates, the Iron Isles, they even like say, hey, this is fucked up, right? But then they're like, it's fine.
Yeah.
You talked for 10 minutes, I give up.
There's plenty of reason for them not to get along, but they all magically do. And
Starks have like 10 representatives there, and everyone's like, that's fine.
Yeah. I think the reason that, I don't know, the 8th season felt very un-Game of Thronesy in like the fast travel time, everything going kind of as expected, no one doing anything weird, there wasn't some weird whatever, people being like weirdly out of character, like Daenerys burning people to death and stuff, where it didn't feel like we were quite there, or we quite earned it, or anything like that. So I think if they had managed to at least give us like one thing, like make Daenerys' thing make sense, make the last like who gets to be king, make that dramatic somehow.
Yeah.
Have the Red Wedding moment where we cut out a bunch of people who we thought were going to make it or whatever, right? Yeah. Have, Tyrion get murdered by, arrows shot by Cersei or whatever,
Tyrion
right?
Should not have made it through this. It doesn't make any sense.
Nothing felt Game of Thronesy. I think because it just turned into some other random network drama that could have been on, CBS after the Super Bowl or whatever.
Yeah, it did feel like that. Like, here are our main characters.
What
hijinks will they get up to next time?
Yeah.
Will they be on the small council? Oh man.
So I think it let people down by being too just normal.
Although, actually all the hobbits did survive, right? That's a little suspicious.
No. No. Wait, hold on. Are you talking about Lord of the Rings
Yeah,
or in
of
the
course,
Hobbit?
Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, I guess they were dwarfs.
They went to fucking Mordor.
Bilbo's the only hobbit. Sorry.
Oh. Sam.
I mean, they sailed away on the boat. Well, some of them.
The death boat, yeah. Okay, so it has precedent. It has precedent for you love your main characters.
Okay, but you already said it's not Lord of the Rings.
The only one who dies is the same person who dies in Game of Thrones, Boromir, a.k.a.
Well, Gandalf, kind of dies, but not really.
Ed Stark. Yeah, he comes back. So is Gandalf the Jon Snow?
Sure, why not?
He's like, I could just take the ring myself, but I don't want to. You do it. I don't want to do anything. That's very Jon Snow.
Yeah. So I think, for the most part, that wraps up Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So legacy slightly imperiled, but a good show overall.
Yes.
Not great.
Yeah. It might be worth rewatching / recommending 3 years down the road when you maybe kind of the details become a little bit fuzzy
Maybe
or
you'll
whatever.
miss it if there no other fantasy show takes over. I mean, really, there wasn't a lot of fantasy shows on TV.
Yeah.
So.
I mean,
and none that were gritty. They were usually sort of goofy.
I mean, I totally agree. I definitely like to fill the medieval fantasy void. I've rewatched Lord of the Rings. I've even fucking rewatched the Hobbit movies just because it's the setting. They're really stupid.
Swords and sorcery.
But yeah, there's something very it's something about that setting is very pleasant and just
And the central thing of Game of Thrones was that people had autonomy. Because everything was so small scale, Arya could become a murder princess. It could happen.
Yeah.
You could stab this person and get free or whatever. There are always consequences and you couldn't necessarily get free of that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about fantasy that's very ground level. Where sci-fi, you often feel like the system is such that you can't do anything. You're stuck. Everyone feels stuck in sci-fi. Fantasy is very freeing in that way.
Yeah.
And Game of Thrones did that well. It seemed like people made choices and things happened.
I agree. And I think people appreciated that for the first 5 to 6 seasons.
Yeah.
Whereas the last season, I would argue everyone felt stuck.
A little, yeah. Okay, then everyone felt stuck by the system.
All right. I think that pretty much wraps things up, unless you have any final words.
Let's call it.
All right, Judgment Engine, Game of Thrones, done. Yeah, we will see you all on whatever nonsense that we get involved in the future.
We got a podcast on Endgame coming up. Stay tuned. We'll always do more. There's more Judgment out there.
More Judgment, more Engine.
Not a lot of Engine, but a little bit more.
It's mostly Judgment.
It's mostly Judgment.